Yes, everybody, and welcome back to another daily drop brought to you by TarHeelIllustrated.com. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner. Joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're here for another Carolina basketball-related drop in this one, and I'm looking forward to talking about this one a little bit, as we're going to be kind of asking you guys a question. We're just going to kind of have a discussion about it. Is it time for Carolina to tweak the rules to get your jersey hung in the Smith Center rafters? And I'll read out the rules and kind of criteria as it stands right now, and then we'll kind of dive into the topic a little bit more. So in order to get your jersey in the Smith Center as of right now, here's the following criteria that, you must meet one of these: National Player of the Year, ACC Player of the Year, first or second team All-American, most valuable player in an NCAA tournament winning team, most outstanding player of the NCAA Final Four, and win an Olympic gold medal, which is a little bit kind of maybe outdated at this point because of, it's an interesting criteria to throw in there that I think was maybe a little bit more relevant back in the day, for lack of a better word. And I think that's one of the rules that I think maybe could be tweaked and something else could be added in its place. That's my opinion, just looking at that list. So in your opinion, AJ, do you think the criteria should maybe be tweaked a little bit? Because to me, I think the Olympic one is the only one that I'm kind of like, I don't really know if that applies as well anymore as it did 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, because it was based on, back then when that was put in, you were an Olympian while still in college, or before you became a professional. Like an 84 Olympic team had Sam Perkins and Michael Jordan, and they were both on their way to the NBA. Perkins had graduated, Jordan had finished his 3 years already declared, and that would qualify them. There were the 76 team. Dean was a coach. There were 4 Carolina players on the team. Guthrie was an assistant. So I think it made a lot of sense back then, but now I don't think it makes any sense at all. And I think that something should be swapped in for it. And what got me thinking was actually I put together this series we're going to run in July about being statue worthy for both football and basketball. And also just the place in history. And trust me, Armando Bacot's not going to have a statue. But we did a lot of stuff about his place in history. And that's what got me thinking about, where does Armando fit in? And I think when you're a 2-time first team All-ACC, that's pretty good. And I think it also says this guy had a really good year and came back. Maybe honor him a little bit for coming back, but so few guys do now. And I think being a first-team ACC guy 2 years in a row or twice in general is really hard. And because of that, I think that should be swapped in. And really, what's better for Carolina? What is more reflective of a Carolina career? The Olympic Games, being in the Olympics, which you don't get to until later on, or being a 2-time first-team All-ACC. Not one time, but you got to be 2-time. Because I think that's special enough. So I think they should swap that out. And if they did that, Armando's jersey would be in the rafters. Because right now, if he's first team All-ACC this year and he's honorable mention All-America and he doesn't win ACC Player of the Year, he's not going to get his jersey in the rafters. And I think that's absurd. Because he's the all-time leading rebounder. I know they lost more games in this 4-year run than anybody else has lost at Carolina. I get all that stuff, but he's a worthy player of having his jersey up there. There's no doubt about it. So I think that they need to switch it. It's a simple thing to do. They have the power to do it. It's not like it was etched in stone when the first day of humanity, and they must abide by it. They can do that themselves, and I think it would be a smart thing to do. And if they did that, I haven't done any digging just yet. I will do it later this summer. But I wonder if there's some other guys that might get their jersey up there that right now don't. I think there's 53 or 54 jerseys up there. So they've had a lot of dudes that have qualified for this, obviously. But there's nothing wrong with having more. I mean, they've gone this far. If they add 6 up there next week because they qualify under this criteria, what's the big deal? I think, if anything, North Carolina needs to make sure if they ever do build a new arena, that it's big enough to be able to hang all these banners.
Yeah.
And they need something bigger because they're starting to get squeezed in there in the Dean Dome roof. So
I know there really isn't, which just speaks to the history of the program. Yeah. And I agree, AJ. I think you switch out the Olympic one, and you look at even the last 20 years. The only two players that even meet that criteria, Harrison Barnes in 2016 and Vince Carter in 2000. So like, it's not like a popular criteria that gets hit very often. It just kind of seems like and it's usually a retrospective one, obviously, because like you said, most people don't play into the Olympics till they're especially now, you have to be.
It used to be
player.
Just college, though.
Exactly.
88 was the last year. It was just college
anymore.
kids.
It doesn't really fit anymore. You know what I mean?
And it's the thing is they always had an Olympian.
Yeah.
So it was one of Dean's ways of placing the program above all others, because we always had an Olympian. That's how special Carolina was. Every Olympic team had to have a Tar Heel on it, right? And they did. So it was a bastion of honor for North Carolina basketball to always be intertwined with the Olympic team. Now it doesn't matter anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's why I think that should be kicked to the curb. I like the other ones. One of the ones I really like is MVP of a national championship team.
Yeah.
So Donald Williams is the MOP in 1993. George Lynch is the MVP of a national championship team, and he gets up there. So I like that rule. I think that's a really, really good one. There's a guy that may not pop all the numbers, but is your fiber and you win a title, he has to be recognized for that. And Lynch put up pretty damn good numbers too, so he was certainly worthy. But I like that rule. I don't know if anything else should be added in there.
I can't think of anything.
I'm not sure. Lottery pick, no, because that's NBA. And it's sort of college, but it's NBA. And the way the NBA used to draft a lot more based on how good you were in college. Now they don't. I mean, there was if Baycott went in the draft this year, he wouldn't have been drafted. The game's changed, obviously, but in 1985, Baycott would have been a top 10 pick.
Mm-hmm. Oh, God.
So everything has changed. Imagine Brad Daugherty coming out now. He's the number one pick.
That's maybe one I could see as a criteria would be I don't think a lottery pick. I think that's too wide, but I think if you're the number one overall pick in the draft, I think that could be kind of cool.
But don't you think, generally speaking, if you're the number one pick in the draft, then you probably had a really good year. However, if you're the number one pick in the draft, let's say Nasir Little was, and you have his kind of freshman year, but his talent
That's a good point, especially now, yeah.
He didn't play that great as a freshman, didn't do a whole lot, so why would he earn it?
Yeah.
I think it has to stay in college. Eliminate the Olympics, make it strictly college. Two-time first-team All-ACC, you should be a lock, in my opinion. And because the national stuff is different now than it was then. Carolina players used to get All-America all the time, so they're really good.
Yeah.
And now everything's changed. There's a lot more voters now. Back then, Carolina was on TV every weekend, and that's who people saw. Now everybody's on TV all the time. It's a little bit different. But locally, regionally in your league, if you can do that 2 years, that's a really, really good college career nowadays. And I think that a guy should get rewarded for that.
Yeah, maybe the number one NBA draft pick one made more sense, years ago when you had to stay for 3 years. Maybe it makes more sense for like a football program or something like that.
But those guys would have been in anyway, right? Because the number one picks that they've had, Daugherty they've had a couple. They've had a lot of number two. They had a lot of top five picks.
Yeah,
think of the top five picks off top of your head right now. If you go back and look at Worthy, number one pick. You look at Jordan. You look at Perkins. You look at Daugherty. You look at, I think J.R. Reed was. You look at Stackhouse and Wallace and Carter and Jameson. They're all up there anyway.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, if you're number one pick at Carolina, you obviously, especially then when you had to stay 3 years, you obviously had a pretty good career at Carolina, and you're probably in for a different reason at that point. So, I think agreed. I think the only thing you can really add to this that makes sense to kind of summarize and wrap up the pod is taking away that Olympic one because it doesn't really apply anymore. And then it doesn't have anything to do with what you do in college anymore, really. Again, like Harrison Barnes and Vince Carter, the two guys who've won it in the past 20 years. You have to be now to play in the Olympics. You have to be one of the best players in the league, essentially. It doesn't have anything to do with what you do in college. Yeah. So I agree. I think you put that one in and then do something like you mentioned with back-to-back ACC play, all ACC, something like that. I think could go in there that would make a little bit more sense and reflects big time accomplishments in college instead of now just something that's outdated. Like I said, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, I think the Olympic one makes a lot of sense, but it just doesn't apply anymore. I'm almost surprised that maybe it hasn't been changed or tweaked or something like that. Maybe they're just.
Or if you want to add one more, if you want to add one more, maybe becoming the all-time leader in a major statistical category. But the problem with that is the NCAA is going to probably move within the next few years to 5 years of eligibility. So that's gonna
skew that too.
Yeah. I think it's more, even in your fifth year, if you're first team all conference, I think that carries more weight than having the most block shots of all time because you got an extra year.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed. And guys, we want to hear from y'all on this. If there's any other criteria that maybe we're not thinking of that's going over our head as we're doing this incredibly organically right now, let us know. If there's something else maybe on the list you think that should be taken off that you don't think is maybe as big of an accomplishment as people make it out to be, let us know as well. You can get involved on Twitter at Heel Illustrated, Facebook at Tar Heel Illustrated, and our website. Just come sign up for $8.33 a month to be a premium subscriber. You can get involved in our premium message board thread. We'll post this podcast and post all of our daily drops and all of our content items as well. So come get involved. We want to hear from you guys. And that's the whole point of these daily drops in a lot of ways is to get a little bit of discourse going during the summer when things can be a little bit quiet besides recruiting and other things as well that do pop up throughout the summer. But I've been Jacob Turney. He's been Andrew Jones. Another episode of the Daily Drop. Appreciate y'all watching. Like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because if you guys haven't noticed, we're uploading 5 days a week. Every weekday, we're throwing one of these daily drops up. So if you want to be notified as soon as it's made public, hit that notification bell and you'll get a notification to your phone every single time. Thanks for watching, guys. See you on the next one.
Thanks.